Hello, welcome to this month's PhUSE Webinar Wednesday. I just wanted to introduce myself first. My name is Yvonne Moores. I'm the PhUSE Strategy and Innovation Director. I'll be introducing today's session. We've got quite a few speakers today, so I'll just quickly run through the agenda of what we're going to cover. So I'll just be giving a quick introduction to everybody and explaining a little bit about what's happening at PhUSE based on feedback from the Board of Directors and things that are happening within the working groups. I'm then going to introduce you all to David Bobbitt, who is going to talk to us about the PhUSE CDISC collaboration. David's the CEO of CDISC, so we're very open and happy to welcome him to the webinar today. I'm then going to give you a bit of an overview of some of the key performance indicators and metrics working group work that we've been delivering and that has been finalised this week. So I'll give you a bit of an update on what's been happening there and where that's getting to. I'm then going to introduce Bhavin and Matt, who are going to give you an overview of optimising the use of data standards working group work on SDTM and ADAM implementation. And then finally it'll be Scott, who gives you a bit of an introduction about the CSS discussion club at the annual conference this year. There'll be an opportunity to get questions answered at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions throughout the session, if you would put them into the chat, we'll then look at the typed questions, because unfortunately we can only take those through a written format rather than verbal. So if you put them into the chat, which you should be able to see in the GoToMeeting screen, and then we will pick those up at the end. Okay, so as I said, I'm just going to give you an overview as to some of the activities that's happening across PhUSE at the moment. So initially, what's happened to that? Initially, we just wanted to tell you about the annual conference, the EU Connect in Edinburgh, which we're very happy to say has been sold out. It's unfortunate if people haven't been able to register, obviously, but we have nearly 700 attendees. So that's a great turnout for the conference. We're going to have a great conference there. The flyer and the full agenda are available on the PhUSE website, and all the conference details are also available on the PhUSE app as well. So based on the fact that we've had such successful annual conferences across Europe, we're very proud to be able to set up our first US Connect conference in America next year. So the plans are well underway for that. That's going to be in Raleigh from June the 3rd to the 6th next year. We have now got the committee identified and the chairs, and we've got the registration and the call for papers opening on October the 9th. So please keep your eyes and ears out for that. As we say, that the conferences tend to get sold out quite quickly now, so if you register early, that will guarantee you a place at that conference as well. Okay, just to let you know as well, we obviously promote group membership across PhUSE. We also encourage individual members as well. And just to give you an idea as to what you can expect from being a member of PhUSE, we've developed a new membership brochure which is specific to 2018. There is a 2017 version if you are interested, but the new brochure is out there ready for review if you wanted to have a look at it. So it's got a nice summary in there of all the PhUSE activities and how you can benefit from being a member of PhUSE. It's accessible via the PhUSE webpage and also through the PhUSE app, and we'll have some printouts available on the PhUSE desk in Edinburgh as well. And if you actually wanted a Japanese version, that's in preparation at the moment, so that should be available soon. So as we've got David on the call today, we also wanted to just bring you up to speed with the joint press release that's been out there with CDISC. That I think that was announced 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is just to show that PhUSE and CDISC are evolving as a partnership to strengthen independent processes. We're combining efforts on key initiatives around end-to-end standards and semantics. So hopefully you've all seen that through news blogs and things that you can see in the industry, and David's going to give us an overview in a little bit of time to sort of enhance what's happening there. For other BOD, Board of Directors updates, please stay tuned. There's lots happening. There's lots of working groups, lots of information being shared at various events, single day events, annual conferences, etc. For all the detailed news, we have the PhUSE app that you can download to your smartphone. You can follow us on social media, and there'll be the ongoing monthly mail shots that give you an idea as to what's happening across the society as well. Okay, so that was the brief introduction as to what's been happening at PhUSE at the moment. I'm now going to hand over to David, who will be taking you through his presentation on the work that's happening between PhUSE and CDISC. Okay, David, hopefully you're able to share your screen now.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Yvonne. Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes, we can hear you and see your screen. Thanks, David.
Wonderful. Thank you. I thought I'd quickly just introduce myself, talk a little bit about CDISC, what I've been up to since I started in April, what we've been up to as an organization, what the future looks like for CDISC, and how PhUSE and CDISC can collaborate to build that future together. So my name is David Bobbitt. I'm fortunate to be named CEO back in April. I've lived a charmed life. I grew up in real modest means on a farm in Virginia in the United States. I was the first generation of my family to attend college and have done some amazing things in my life and career. I got to help start the New York Genome Center in Manhattan. I got to help start a public polytechnic university in Florida, the first new public polytech in the U.S. in more than 3 decades. I ran a management consulting business for a number of years that I founded, which was exciting, and came to CDISC after leading a medium-sized nonprofit in the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm really enjoying being part of CDISC and part of the community of clinical data standards experts and implementers and users all around the globe. In these few months, I've visited 9 countries and 3 continents, and I've literally met with hundreds of stakeholders. I'm not a standards expert. Maybe in a year or 2 I may become one, but I hope you'll be interested in what I have learned about our organization and about standards and some of the vision that I've built with our team and our board. So just quickly, I mentioned that I've been a management consultant in the past, so you have all these questions about the big game. What's the strategy for an organization? How does it succeed? How does it thrive? And so for CDISC, all of our revenue and recognition flow from the adoption and implementation of standards. We're in the standards business. How is CDISC sustainable? The further upstream the standards are implemented by members and stakeholders, the greater CDISC opportunity to become sustainable. And so what's the right structure? We have to balance, dexterity for change with a smart view of stability. Our standards have to be stable so that organizations, research institutions, and businesses can make reasonable decisions about the reliability of the standards, but we also have to change and embrace. Research is dynamic, and the technology platforms that you all work on are very dynamic. And so CDISC, needs to be refreshed on a regular basis. It's important for our organization and for the communities that we serve. I'm going to quickly drive through just a few slides to let you know there's a plan. We've built 2017 goals, and they'll probably bleed into 2018 because they have, I think, some capacity to last for a few years. Let's see. We will work to build a more customer-centric culture, and as a nonprofit, maybe a way to say that is a stakeholder-centric culture, generating greater value for our members. Our members fund this organization. Many of you work at organizations that are CDISC members, and we're awfully grateful for the revenue and volunteer and other support that those organizations provide us. We must make sure the standards are sustainable, and I'll talk a bit more about that. That's a big part of the partnership between PhUSE and CDISC. We must optimize our standards development and release process. Although I'm not a standards expert, I think I bring some really strong skills in how you run an organization effectively. And being transparent and predictable is awfully helpful to everyone in your community, every one of your stakeholders. And I believe we've made progress on this. I'll talk about that a bit more. And then finally, laying the foundation for CDISC 2.0, what I call the future of CDISC, and how we'll do that. On a customer-centric culture, What that means is we really need to delight our stakeholders, provide more information in other languages, provide tools for implementers, number one, and that's one of the projects we'll be working on with PhUSE with your support. We need to improve our website, improve the availability of tools and information, make our website more user-friendly. That's our front door. That's how people find us as an organization. Learn from surveying our members and stakeholders as well. Generating greater member value. Right now, the Share API is behind a paywall. I think later in the year we'll be able to announce that that's actually a benefit for Platinum members with no additional paywall. I think that'll be a benefit for many of our members. Share is a great set of tools. It's a great platform, and we want it to be used more broadly. We have some good news about a CDISC certification program. We've received accreditation from the body that internationally accredits organizations to provide CEUs. So I think that's awfully helpful. As I've met with stakeholders, I've heard a demand for this, both from the side of individuals who'd like to be known for their expertise, to be able to demonstrate that directly, and from organizations that would like to demonstrate their expertise collectively, or who would like to know when they're going out and hiring capable people to know that those people are certified, that they have the prerequisites to do a good job, whether that's an implementer, a data scientist, a programmer, or a statistician who needs to be knowledgeable about CDISC standards. And we've built a good educational program. I'm a data guy. If you look at the numbers of people who respond to our surveys about our educational offerings, I'm very pleased with what we do. Probably the challenge there is we just need to do more, and it takes resources to build good educational opportunities. I mentioned sustainability. Sustainability is certainly about people. It's also about money, and it's about making sure the organization is effective and does what it says it's going to do. And so we do need to make sure we have more revenue streams. We have an ambitious financial goal for the year that I think we'll meet. And we need to do a really good job providing our teams and our people the resources they need to get the job done. Optimizing the standards release and development process. I'll actually dive deeper into this in a couple slides. I think it's interesting. I think it may be interesting to many of you. So for sake of time, I won't spend time on this slide. And laying the foundation for CDISC 2.0. You know, I don't have the capacity to do this on my own, but as I've gotten to know this global community, there's so many bright, committed people all around the world. And so I want to tap into the genius in the room, but the room is the size of the planet Earth. So I'll appoint a temporary commission in 2018, 25 to 30 people who represent many sectors, CROs, pharmaceutical companies, academics, certainly our regulators, to really grapple with some of the big questions that we have to have about the CDISC standards. How do we optimize our release system and versioning even better? How do we deal with issues around 2D representation and reports and the challenges that creates for many of our users? How do we ensure that we have truly beginning to end standards? What does that even mean? That means different things to different stakeholders. I've discovered it. I've traveled around the globe. But I believe if we get the right people together, we can tackle these and other critical issues for the future of the organization. I'll talk about a couple things just quickly about work we're doing within the strategic plan. Organizations evolving in the last few months with a predictable release schedule, enhanced governance, clear principles, greater support for all of our teams, our working groups, better training and tools for our volunteers, and easy-to-use global collaboration tools. And I'll quickly try to address each of these. We've made one big change already on being predictable, which is that all standards will become final on the first Friday of November of each year. We're going to make sure we're very transparent about whether there's foundational standards or therapeutic area user guides that will be released in the timeline. We'll continue to do controlled terminology on a quarterly basis, do those release volume and how much demand we have for controlled terminology. But we'll also be able to release TAs along the way. But as we release them, they'll always be provisional, and they'll actually become final in that first week in November. We want to make sure we're as predictable and transparent as we can be for all of our stakeholders, and I hope you perceive this as a transparent improvement in our processes as an organization. We've enhanced governance. Many of you probably know this slide already. The big change are the blue circles, GGG, Global Governance Group. We've collapsed some of our governance committees into this one body and tried to optimize its placement in our development process. This should get rid of some bottlenecks that we've experienced in the past and should help us be more nimble as an organization as we have more updates and changes moving through our system. We're focused on principles. I probably just, for sake of time, can't go through this slide today, but I love the little iceberg in the upper right-hand corner. Organizations are often seen for their practices, but what's really important are the principles and values that underlie them. And so we want to make sure our working groups are very focused on principles in how standards are developed, in both high-level principles that are specific to our organization and to the more team-level principles that are specific to the working groups that they work in. Another change that we've made in the last few months is that now for our working groups, these are primary working groups down the left side of the page, and you'll note many of the volunteer lead names. We now have a CDISC staff member, the red box on the right, a staff member or contractor who is a project manager for each of these critical teams. This is a big change for our organization, and these folks also all have expertise on the work that that team does. I believe we can't support our community if we don't first support our volunteers and our teams to make sure they have clear and reasonable expectations and this kind of project management function that can allow them to achieve their best and to get the work done that they need to get done with an open dialogue between CDISC headquarters, if you will, and the working group. And this model seems to be working very well. I've got lots of good feedback from our teams about it, as well as from my staff. We have new training and tools for volunteers. We've updated some of our COPs just to have clear and reasonable expectations. Much of this is already in place, particularly our ethics policy, but we've taken a good look at these to make sure they make sense. On volunteer engagement, we have some principles now about appropriate behavior for volunteers to make sure that's clear and reasonable, and some expectations around succession planning for our teams, which is also important. Also expectations about how we bring in new volunteers, how we orient them and train them. And then finally, in addition to the volunteer agreements, we also are going to track volunteer hours. That's really critical for understanding our business process. How long does it take to do something? In each of your businesses, you know how long it takes to make a change or do work specifically. We've actually not known that at CDISC in the past. We've guessed. So now we'll have some real data to make informed decisions and choices around. So many of you know about our wiki that's been around for a while. Jira is the system built into the wiki to track both public comments and also respond to those comments and track issues that may be deployed, maybe addressed in future deployments, future updates of versions. This system is not new, but we're making sure we're using it more fruitfully and productively as an organization and being more transparent about its existence, including training. Obviously, the two things I'm most excited about recently is announcing the expansion and deepening of this partnership with PhUSE. It's just great for CDISC, and I hope y'all feel it's great for PhUSE. And I mentioned earlier we've received accreditation from IACET that our training courses can now receive CEU accreditation, so we can actually create a formal accreditation system for CDISC. I don't know what that looks like yet. We haven't worked out all the details. Probably we'll have an SDTM accreditation, an ADAM accreditation, and then maybe an overall accreditation. But don't hold me to that. We haven't made any final decisions. But we can now build that, and we have some plans. Most of you know Shannon LaBoot, who's been interim Chief Standards Officer. Education is something she's built so successfully at CDISC. She has a lot of thoughts on this and good thoughts, and we'll get a plan out, and it'll be publicly available so people can see it in a transparent way. So specifically on all these items, let me get to the meat of this discussion as time goes by. The collaboration with PhUSE about direct, regular, and friendly discussions on all topics. I commit to you as the CEO at CDISC that that's what we're going to do. We're going to engage on a regular basis. It's going to be direct, and it's always going to be friendly. I respect the work that you do. I know your volunteers, and man, what you're doing is awfully important. For CDISC to succeed, PhUSE has to succeed. Clearly a big goal of mine since I joined the organization has been support for implementers and the Venn diagram of the work that our two organizations do. I think that's a real huge overlap automatically. It's part of this expanded partnership and certainly sharing best practices. As I've met with stakeholders around the planet, there's a lot of hunger for people to understand what works best. How should it work in my big organization and my small organization? How can we share that information more broadly? And I'm happy to partner to do that. The new to clinical data standards toolkit, that's my name for it. Stephen Bamford calls it CDISC for dummies. That's probably a better name for it. But I want to make sure we do a good job helping people who are new to this world, because the CDISC standards are here to stay, and it looks like they're going to be adopted and mandated in more sectors and in more places. So let's make sure we do a good job of onboarding the kinds of implementers and programmers and data scientists who are new to this world in the coming years. I want to support each other's events and programs. That's an easy thing to do, but we should do that and enjoy the time we spend together. We're going to work on a joint membership drive, see how that goes. And then just as we move forward, determine more ways to mutually support one another, our two organizations. Stephen called me with a question not too long ago on a topic that somebody on my team had a little bit of expertise on, and I had asked that person to provide him just an email, a summary. As far as regular communications, I forgot to mention that Scott Bahlavooni and Chris Decker and Shannon LeBoot are having regular conversations. I was in the first one, just to keep an ongoing dialogue about all topics that we're working on, and making sure there's an open door and a regular forum for our organizations to start to discuss. I want to mention Chief Standards Officer. Shannon's been doing this on an interim basis. She has my confidence. As an organization, we're going to do a global search for this position. It would be great if the person who comes into this role is an amazing implementer. It certainly needs to be someone who has a lot of gravitas, standing within industry and standing within the regulators we work with. So if you know anybody who you think would be a good candidate, I'm happy to discuss it with you. My email will be at the end of the presentation. But I think this is a great opportunity to help CDISC move forward even more rapidly. This is a very important role within the organization. Most of all, CDISC is people. Really good people are drawn to clinical data standards. When I first joined this organization, the first person to reach out to me who was not a board member or a staff member was Stephen Bamford. I really have to tip my hat to him. What a nice guy. And as I've gotten to know other people involved with PhUSE, I see that over and over again. It's a good community, and it's part of this good community that CDISC is part of as well, with our volunteers and networks and users all over the planet. So we need to be good friends. We need to get along. Here's my mobile number. Here's my email address. If I can ever be of any service, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I think I'm over time, so I'm going to stop talking, but there'll be a chance for questions at the end, I believe. So let me pass the baton to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, David. That was really informative. So I'm just going to give a brief overview on the PhUSE Data Science Metric Reporting and KPI project that's been running as one of the working groups within PhUSE. So just as a brief introduction as to why the working group was set up, it was discussed at one of the board of directors meetings that the need for data reporting metrics is required within the data science industry. So the PhUSE Board of Directors endorsed a working group to be put together to establish a set of common data reporting metrics that were more detailed than industry-wide metrics, so it allows us more granularity in project reporting and business process management. They also tasked the working group with standardizing relevant terminology and definitions, not to reinvent anything that was already out there, but to reuse information that's already been captured within the industry and to put together standard definitions for that's not already out there. And then the final area was to agree some ground rules that relate to confidentiality of the information that's being captured, the processes around the collection of the metrics, and then the processes for the reporting and the sharing of the metrics. So back in 2016, we put together a working group, asked for volunteers. We had lots and lots of volunteers, and we've had a sort of around the 40 FTE mark of people involved from a volunteer basis over the last 12 months. So we split the working group into 3 streams. One was to concentrate on the ground rules and the documentation with regards to frequently asked questions and those rules. We then had KPIs being established both at the study level and the submission level. So those 2 teams did actually work in isolation at one point and then came back together to discuss things, because there was a lot of overlap in some of the metrics that were being discussed. And then we also had a definitions team as well. So they were working closely with the other groups to look at what the KPIs were that were being established, to understand what definitions needed to be put in place, or what needed to be researched that was already out there. So, like I say, the working groups have been working very, very hard. We've come together on a number of occasions, and we've got to the stage now where we're classing a phase 1 delivery based on about 20 metrics that are going to be available and delivered as a pilot to a number of life science companies in order to collect their information. So the documentation that's available is all available on the PhUSE website. We've got a ground rules and a frequently asked questions document that will help those being asked for the information to what the general consensus has been as to how we've put everything together, some of the rationale behind why PhUSE are doing this. We've also got documentation that gives the definitions of the metrics. It gives some definitions on terminology, and then there's a data flow diagram that will help individuals to understand the data flow of the information that's being captured from a metrics perspective. So this is the KPI area on the PhUSE website. There's a ground rules and FAQ in this section. As you can see, this just lists, like I say, some of the frequently asked questions that we've gone through as teams, or that we've gone through as feedback from some of the information that's been shared. And then we've got this KPI map. This then links to documents that sit behind the website that will give in a bit more detail some of the metrics and the terminology that we're looking for to describe what the metric is, how it should be calculated, and that should give some clear guidance then on how the metrics are going to be captured. So each of the red lines on here will open up to a specific document. Each of the blobs on here will also open up to a specific document. So that's all there available to the guys on the that's been asked in the companies that the pilot's been sent to. They have all that information to share with as well. So we have a group called Harris Interactive. They're an independent company, so they can anonymize everything that's been sent through, because we understand that companies may not want their information shared either with PhUSE or across the industry. So that's why we took the decision to bring on Harris as an independent body to really anonymize the information so that PhUSE can receive back the information in an anonymized format for reporting and processing. So as well as the pilot that's been issued this week, that pilot's gone out to about 30 different companies at this stage, and the reason we're calling it a pilot is there's hundreds of companies out there that we could send this to, but what we wanted to do is gather some feedback on the information that's been finalised through the working group at the moment, just to make sure that everybody's on board with what we're looking to gather, how useful it's going to be for them, and then also get some feedback on where we can make improvements, any other ideas as to what can be included, because we're moving on to what we're classing as phase 2 of the working group now. We've created some work streams similar to what we had for the phase 1 delivery. The KPI metrics of study and submission level have been merged into one. They may be doing activities separately, but we're looking at the moment as to whether the 23, 24 metrics that we have at the moment need to be expanded to a greater level, so that all the lines and blobs on the data flow diagram that you saw earlier has a metric associated with them. We're redefining the metrics definitions and documentation, so there's a working group been set up to look at that. One is to use the feedback that we get from the pilot session, and also to add to any additional metrics that we may think of through the study and submission group. And then we've also got a working group or a working substream looking at the summary report. What format does it need to take? What's the content that's going to be in there? How are we going to report the metric information that we receive back? So part of the FAQ and the ground rules does establish a lot of how that is going to take shape, but it's down to that summary report group to really finalise that and get agreement across the industry. So like I say, we're waiting on feedback from the pilot. That was launched this week. I think that actually closes at the end of November, so we should have lots of information to report back. And then what we're going to do is update all the information that we have if needed, and then have an ongoing maintenance plan for annual reporting and collection of metrics over the coming years, which will hopefully help in the industry in looking at how we can increase efficiencies. So that was all I wanted to share with you today with regards to the KPI working group information. As David said, if anybody has any questions, then please put them into the chat, and hopefully we can pick them up at the end. So I'm going to hand over now to Bhavin, who's going to take us through with Matt to some of the optimizing use of data standards working group information around SDTM and ADAM implementation. So Bhavin, it's over to you and Matt. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Yvonne. I hope everybody can see my screen. I am Bhavin Busa, and I'm going to put it on presentation mode. So just to, again, I know we have a lot of people today, and we wanted to update about the project that Matt and I are leading. A lot of people are involved. The project is called SDTM and ADAM Implementation FAQs. Means any frequently asked questions, from the industry. We are trying to address that and create a wiki, create a database, and we will show you what we're doing there. Just again, as a note, this project is part of the optimizing the use of data standards working group. So it's an independent project led by myself, Bhavin, and Matt, who's gonna show you guys what we have put together so far. So just to give you a background, and I know there are a lot of people, and I don't want to assume that everybody knows about this project. So the way we started is back in March and June timeframe last year, 2016. When we had the CSS in both in North America and EU, there were a lot of common challenges that were discussed in the roundtable discussion table among the SDTM and ADAM implementers and consumers. Not only just about the CDISC stuff, data standards, but also about the submission to regulatory agencies, about for FDA, for PMDA, and even from Asian regulatory agencies. And I think it was a really amazing idea to actually to start this project and to have a forum and subsequent knowledge base, because a lot of these questions are discussed all over the world in multiple meetings. And I think the initiative was to create a knowledge base and create a database of FAQs so that we could have it available to the public. And I think that's where we started as a project, and we wanted to form some kind of forum and some kind of medium to address these questions. So as you could see, a working group was formed, which to collaborate with CDISC, along with FDA and industry in June 2016. It sort of kicked off pretty slow, but we have picked up in the last 1 year, and we've done a lot of good progress. The participants include not only just people from the industry, but also from FDA and CDISC. We have a good support from both the organizations, and we know there are people interested from PMDA as well. And then, of course, the people who are leading, myself, Matt, and including so many other people, and I have this statistic in front of you guys. There are 77 members in this project. Some are active, some are super active, and some are not active, which is okay. And I think that's why this PhUSE is all about, is to have volunteers across 36 organizations. And the number speaks to itself from why people are like to participate in this project, because they have questions of their own and they would like to get that addressed. So there are a lot of people who join in not only to participate and to actually address the questions, but maybe even just to learn from what we're doing, which is absolutely fine. And we meet once a month as a team. And I'll actually go into a little bit detail about how we actually had 6 sub-teams first, and now we sort of integrated into one team. But again, as if you look at the loop, the idea is to get the questions from the implementers and consumers, which are people who are attending today, and then bring it to our team, the project team. And then once the project team, the SMEs, discuss it among ourselves, review it, we would like to publish it on PhUSE. Now, one thing I want to note is this project team is not not meant to address questions for implementation. This project team is meant to address some of the common challenges, nuances that are there in IGs, or probably it's not clear about what the expectation is from the regulatory agency. It is meant to address some of the common challenges, but not for, if somebody wants to know how do I map this in findings about domain, it's not the forum for that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is very clear. Now, one thing that we came across is, we need to divide it among some of the topics. And what we did is we divided into 6 subtopics because the FAQs are, it could be broad or it could be actually specific to the topic. Not everyone in our project team is an expert in legacy SDTM mapping. So we thought, let's divide and conquer. And then we have some of the leads actually leading. We have sub-leads in all these different topic areas. And then, you will see how we've divided some of the FAQs as well, depending on these. And then, of course, this is a very wide topic on its own, FAQs in CDISC, SDTM, and regulatory submission. So we thought it'll be good to divide it up, and then so that, people can see and navigate to the certain questions specific to certain topic from the wiki. And I'm going to just go directly. We do have some collaboration tools, and we want to take this opportunity for people who are attending. I see about 130 people, people in the industry, to know that there is actually a place on our PhUSE wiki which you could submit your questions. And then there's already a database that is created. We still, of course, it's work in progress, but we have a database that we'll show you. Matt and I will go over it. And just before we go into the website on the wiki, we wanted to share, this is our contact. If you do have any questions, of course, reach out to us, either me or Matt or Wendy or any PhUSE members, and they will navigate and they will pass on your information over to us. I'm going to click on this link, and this is public, and I'll take Matt. Are you there? Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can take it from here, and I can see your screen, Bhavin. So basically, one of the things we wanted to share with this group is really it's sort of a reason to show you what's there. This is out there, as Bhavin said, it's public, and we know we've got people on this call. Some of you might have even participated in our sub-teams, so we've got a wide range of audience here. So that's why we're going out to the PhUSE wiki, sharing with you where this web page is, all of the information that's on this web page is available to you. If you'll scroll down just a little bit, Bhavin, there's a process flow diagram out here also, which really shows how how do we receive a question, what do we do with the question, how does it go, how do we go about actually responding to the questions that come through on this. So just, again, you can take a look at this on your own, but this is the flow that we go through. And then the other important area out here I want to point to is the actual, how do you ask a question? So there's a link on this web page that allows you to actually submit a question into us. It's collected within the PhUSE group. Actually, Wendy receives all of these, and then she spirits them over to our team, our main team, and we review them to see, do we need more questions on them, those types of practices. So anyone can ask a question at any time. We typically receive more when we come together in the conferences. We collect a whole bunch, we get them into categorical areas, we then create a subgroup to deal with responding if necessary, to be able to put the response out to the person that's actually asked it, and then potentially even publish it, which Bhavin will share in a few minutes, what we've already published. So the form's there, the flow diagram's there, the contact information for us is there. We encourage you, blatantly to try and go out and just look at this. We like getting hits on this too, so if you just go look at the things that are there, that's good. The FAQ team responses Bhavin's going into right now are actually ones that we've worked on over the last year and a half. It's been about 18 months, I think, close to 18 months that we worked through and actually got these published for the first time about 3 months ago. So you have the opportunity to actually go out and review the questions, review the responses. Those types of items are already out there. We're still active. We're still trying to to solicit questions that come in, good questions that are really not tied to specific organizations, but more broadly will impact broader groups in the industry. So we encourage you to use those use this site to get those questions to us so that we can then begin to work through the different organizations that we're already connected with to have a viable response out there. I think, Bhavin, the only other thing I would do is just, as a shameless plug, we will be collecting at the Edinburgh, there is a session there that's going to take place. Lisa Brooks is going to lead it, and I think it's in the discussion club area. If anybody that's on the call has thought about some questions or wants to be a part of this process, you have an opportunity to actually join at that annual conference. You can join in with that group, or you can come to either Bhavin or myself, and we can spirit you into our group, into the areas that you have interest. So, Bhavin, if you want to share maybe some of the current questions that you guys are working on. I know there's a few that have come up recently. You might want to share a little bit about those.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, just going back to the slide. So here's what Matt walked you guys through is where you could find where is our wiki first of all, and then how could you submit a question, and then where is the database, and then we're going to post this presentation on PhUSE website. So if you want to look at it after the fact, you would have it. The one thing that I want to mention, more for the project team, but we do have a collaboration site, Teamwork, where we collaborate. There are messaging capability, and then we could actually attach documents, and then once we get the questions, as what Matt mentioned about the process flow, every team members who are actually as part of the project team gets the message. So all these 77 members actually get a message, and that's how we are able to collaborate and get a response. And it's been a very good experience, at least leading this, because you have members from all the big pharmas to small pharma to FDA to CDISC as well, right? So if you are interested to join, please reach out to any of us. And then there is, of course, this topic will be discussed, as Matt mentioned, by Lisa at the EU's conference. And I just to reiterate again, this is again a lot of hard work was put together by the team. One thing we'll mention, which as a project team, we've been very careful about what we say and what we recommend. So what we are saying, and we don't, of course, there is always a disclaimer. This is an opinion of the PhUSE project team. You should always reach out to the regulatory body for any specific question to your submission or to your data sets. But this is a recommendation that we make, and then we do back it up with references, right? So you would see, we'll make sure that any response we make, we will back it up with the references. So it's not that we are making it up. It's more of collating it all together and then making it available to the public. Who this website will be public, and at the same time helping the industry, helping the FDA, and helping CDISC to collate it all together. And I'll tell you, this will grow eventually as we have got more questions. and it's already, I think it's 15 minutes from my time. So I'll actually pass it on now to Scott. This is it from our end, and if you have any question, feel free to reach out and post your questions on this message board.
Thank you, Bhavin and Matt. Scott, are you okay to take over?
Certainly.
Great, thank you.
All right. I just want to confirm that you can see the slides.
We can, thank you.
Excellent. Perfect. So I want to thank Matt and Bhavin for a nice segue to my brief chat about the CSS discussion club, at the annual conference. I also want to thank David Bobbitt, the CEO from CDISC, for taking his valuable time to come and speak with the PhUSE community today. As working group director at PhUSE, I'm very excited to continue to forge strategic relationship with CDISC. The project that Matt and Bhavin just presented on was one of many projects within the computational science collaboration, where CDISC and PhUSE are working closely together, and we actually have official CDISC liaisons to those projects. So I think, especially over the past couple of years, PhUSE and CDISC have done an excellent job collaborating and ensuring that we're meeting each other's needs. And again, I look forward to future strengthening of that collaboration. So I think most folks on the phone, you've probably seen this slide more times than you care to. Just to reiterate that the computational science collaboration, of which the project that Matt and Bobbitt just presented is a part of, it's an open, transparent, and non-collaborative space where industry, regulators, standards development organizations like CDISC, technology providers, academia, can all come together and work on challenges that we have in the research and development space. And again, I think that the primary goal of this collaboration is really about improving the way that we as industry do business, that we as standards development organizations develop standards, that we as regulators review and approve therapies and get them out to the patients that really need them the most. So again, I think at times in our day jobs we can lose sight of why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. But again, it's really about the people who need therapies and need treatment. So as Bhavin and Matt mentioned, the annual conference, I think we've been doing this for the last 3 or 4 years now. The Computational Science Collaboration hosts a discussion club session. And during that session, for folks that may not always have participated in some of the working group projects and are new to that collaboration, or some folks that are participating in the project, it's a chance for folks that are attending the annual conference to kind of come together, learn a bit about the computational science collaboration, the working groups, and then break out into separate sessions to kind of talk about some of the projects in more detail. So this year, we are hosting that CSS discussion club on Monday, September 9th from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. We will start that discussion club with just an overview of the CS collaboration. So you will hear a bit about what the collaboration stands for, what the different working groups are, and then highlighting some of the projects within the collaboration. And then after about half an hour, we'll break out into I think either 4 or 5 different sessions. As Bhavin and Matt mentioned, there's going to be a session on the SDTM Atom FAQ project that these 2 fine gentlemen just went through. There's also going to be a discussion club session on a project in the Emerging Trends and Technologies Working Group on fire for clinical research, as well as another breakout on a project in the same working group on clinical trial data in RDF. And as I heard someone else get in a shameless plug earlier, I will take the opportunity to do that as well. There's also a workshop session on the representation of information in different graph models. And Tim Williams, the head of one of the leads on this clinical trial data in RDF project, is hosting that workshop. And if you are attending the annual conference, it's a unique opportunity to get together and do some hands-on in that space. We also will have a breakout session from the standard analyses and code sharing working group. They're just going to talk in general about some of the projects that are going on within that working group and some of the deliverables that they've created. So if you're interested in that, those folks will be kind of giving a high-level overview of the working group. And then finally, we believe that the Educating for the Future working group may host a breakout session. We're trying to confirm if there are some potential scheduling conflicts with that, but this working group may actually present at the discussion club as well. So to kind of wrap up the webinar today, the March 2018 is going to come up on us very quickly, and that will be our, I believe it's going to be our 7th annual Computational Science Symposium. So we've, over the past couple of years, hosted what we've called a Marching to March series of webinars, and the first of those webinars will take place in October, and they will go through March of 2018, and it just gives you as the PhUSE community an opportunity to understand the activities that are going on in the working groups, what to expect at the 2018 annual Computational Science Symposium, just a way for you to get prepped for that meeting. November 1st of this year, the registration for the 2018 CSS will open, and as well as the call for posters. The call for posters closes in January, and then in late January, the early bird registration opens. Last year, the conference did sell out as usual, so if you are interested in attending, we encourage you to register early so you can take advantage of the discounted rate. If you don't happen to make that January of 2018 cutoff, the registration itself closes on February 23rd of 2018, and the actual conference itself is the first week in March this year. Typically, it's the second or third week, but we did have to move that date up a little bit. So it's March 4th to March 6th of 2018. So that is all that I have. I did see a question that what does RDF stand for? RDF is the Resource Description Framework. It's a W3C standard to represent information in a more graphical, more natural form. So with that, I'm going to pass the presentation back to Yvonne for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, I wanted to say a big thank you to all our presenters today. It's a really informative webinar, so thank you very much for your time and putting together all the information to share with our PhUSE members. As far as I'm aware, we have around 6 minutes for Q&A. As I said at the start, if anybody could type into the chat on your GoToWebinar screen, you should be able to ask any questions that you wanted to throughout that covers all the topics throughout the session today. Scott's kindly just answered one of the questions that came through. I'm just having a quick look now. I can see there was an earlier question raised with regards to de-identification, asking when the PhUSE ADAM de-identification standard is releasing this year. It should be releasing this year. We don't unfortunately have anybody from the Data Transparency Working Group on the panel today, so we can't get you any specific information with regards to what's being released when. But what we can do is get that information from the working group and send that answer directly back to the person that specifically asked the question. So hopefully that will be sufficient for today, and I'll make sure the PhUSE office are aware that that's the expectation following today's question. Yeah, I don't know if there's any else coming through. Not seen anything just yet, so I think we give it another minute or so just to see if anybody's got any other questions. There's also availability of asking questions post the session as well today, so if you've got any questions, please feel free just to email the PhUSE office, or there may be some way of doing that within the webinar itself. Okay, I think in the interest of time, it doesn't look as though there's anything else coming through. So I will bring a close to today's webinar. Thank you very much to everybody for attending. We've had a great turnout for today's session, so thank you all for your time. And yes, we'll hopefully look forward to meeting as many of you as possible in Edinburgh in October. Thank you very much.